The screech of tires tore through the quiet street like a scream that didn't belong. A black car sped past, too fast, too reckless, and then a body hit the ground. Hard. The sound echoed in the empty alley, followed by a silence so heavy it felt like the world itself had stopped breathing. For a moment, no one moved. No one came out. Windows stayed shut. Doors remained closed. Because sometimes, fear makes people pretend they didn't see anything. But one boy did. From behind a rusted metal gate, 12-year-old Aaron stood frozen, his heart pounding wildly against his ribs. His thin frame trembled, not just from fear, but from the shock of what he had just witnessed. The man on the ground wasn't moving. Rain had just begun to fall, soft at first, then faster, soaking the cracked pavement and washing thin streams of red across the concrete. Aaron swallowed hard. His mind screamed at him to stay back, to hide, to pretend he hadn't seen anything. Have you ever been in a moment where helping someone could put you in danger? Because this was that moment. And Aaron knew it. He had lived his entire life learning one thing. Stay out of trouble. His mother had always said it. People like us don't get second chances, she would warn. But as Aaron stood there, watching the man bleed into the ground, something inside him refused to listen. Because leaving him there felt worse than the fear. Aaron pushed the gate open slowly. The creak sounded louder than it should have. He stepped out, each step cautious, careful. His worn-out shoes splashed against the rain-soaked ground as he moved closer. The man was dressed in a suit, expensive, even in the dim light. His face was bruised, blood running down from his forehead, mixing with the rain. He looked important, out of place, like someone who didn't belong in a place like this. Aaron knelt beside him, his hands shaking. "Hey, can you hear me?" he whispered. No response. The man's breathing was shallow. Barely there. Aaron's chest tightened. Panic crept in. What if he dies? What if it's too late? But then, a faint movement. The man's fingers twitched slightly. Aaron leaned closer. "Hey, stay with me," he said, louder now. The man's eyes flickered open for a second. Dark, unfocused, then closed again. Aaron looked around. Still no one. No help. Just rain. Just silence. Just him. Have you ever realized that in some moments, you are the only help someone has? Aaron made a decision, fast, without thinking too much, because thinking too much could make him stop. He slid one arm under the man's shoulder, struggling as he tried to lift him. The man was heavy, much heavier than Aaron expected. His arms strained instantly, his grip slipped, but he didn't give up. "Come on," he muttered under his breath. "Don't die here." It took everything he had. Every ounce of strength, every bit of determination. But slowly, inch by inch, he dragged the man toward his small house at the end of the alley. The door creaked open as Aaron pushed it with his foot. Inside, the room was small. Dim, barely enough space for two people, let alone three. But it was all he had. He laid the man down on the thin mattress. His breathing was still weak. Still uneven. Aaron's hands were shaking badly now. He had never done anything like this before. He didn't know what to do. But he knew one thing. He couldn't stop now. He grabbed an old cloth, soaking it with water, carefully wiping the blood from the man's face. Each touch was gentle, careful, respectful, as if the man might break if he wasn't. "Stay alive," Aaron whispered. "Please." The man stirred slightly again. A faint groan escaped his lips. Relief flooded through Aaron's chest. He's alive, but barely. Hours passed. The rain didn't stop. The night grew deeper. And Aaron didn't leave his side, not even once. He sat there, watching, waiting, fighting sleep, fighting fear, because something told him, this moment mattered, more than he understood, more than he could see. Have you ever done something small, without knowing it might change your entire life? Because that's what this was. Around midnight, the man finally opened his eyes fully. Confusion filled them, pain followed. "Where am I?" he whispered. Aaron leaned forward quickly. "You're safe," he said. "I found you outside." The man blinked slowly, trying to focus. "You helped me." Aaron nodded. The man stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand something deeper than the situation. Then, weakly, he said something unexpected. "Why?" Aaron hesitated, then shrugged slightly. "Because you needed help." Simple, honest, true. The man's lips moved slightly, almost like he wanted to say something more. But the strength wasn't there. "Not yet. Rest," Aaron said softly. And for the first time that night, the man closed his eyes without fear. Morning came slowly. The rain had stopped. but the air still felt heavy. Like the storm had left something behind. Aaron woke up sitting against the wall, his head tilted to the side. His body ached, but his eyes immediately went to the man. Still there, still breathing, alive. Relief washed over him again. He stood up, stretching slightly, then moved closer. "Hey," he said quietly. "You awake?" The man opened his eyes again. Clearer this time, stronger. "Yes," he murmured. Aaron smiled faintly. "That's good." The man tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "Easy," Aaron said quickly, helping him gently. "Where am I?" the man asked again. "My house," Aaron replied. The man looked around. Really looked this time. The cracked walls, the worn furniture, the simple space. Something in his expression changed. Not judgment, not pity, something else. Understanding. "What's your name?" he asked. "Aaron." The man nodded slowly. "I'm Victor." Silence followed, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was thoughtful. Victor studied Aaron for a moment, then asked, "Do you live here alone?" Aaron shook his head. "With my mom. She's at work." Victor nodded again, then looked down at his hands. Still slightly trembling. "You saved my life," he said quietly. Aaron didn't respond, because he didn't see it that way. He just helped. But Victor saw it differently. And that difference was about to change everything. Because what Aaron didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that the man lying on his bed was not just any man, and the night he chose to help him was not just any moment. It was the beginning of something much bigger. Something that would return to his door, in a way he would never forget. Days later, when the street was quiet again, when life had almost returned to normal, when Aaron thought that night was just a memory, that's when it happened. The sound of tires, slow, heavy, deliberate. He looked outside, and froze. A black SUV had stopped right in front of his house. And this time, it wasn't leaving. The engine didn't turn off right away. It idled there, low and steady, like a quiet warning that something important had arrived, and wasn't leaving anytime soon. Aaron stood by the small window, his fingers gripping the torn curtain just enough to peek outside. His heart began to pound again, the same way it had that night in the rain. The black SUV looked out of place on their narrow, broken street. Too clean, too expensive, too deliberate. Have you ever felt like something was watching you, even when you couldn't see it clearly? Because that's what it felt like. Aaron swallowed hard. "Mom," he called softly. From the kitchen, his mother, Rosa, looked up, wiping her hands on a worn cloth. "What is it?" "There's a car outside." She frowned slightly. "What kind of car?" Aaron hesitated. "Not like the ones here." That was enough to make her walk over. She pulled the curtain aside more confidently, but the moment her eyes landed on the SUV, her expression changed. Tension, worry, instinct. People who struggle learn to recognize trouble before it speaks. "Stay behind me," she said quietly. Aaron didn't argue. The SUV door opened. One man stepped out, then another, both dressed in dark suits, their movements calm, controlled, almost rehearsed. Not aggressive, but not casual either. They walked toward the house, each step echoing faintly in the silence of the street. Neighbors began to peek from windows. Doors opened slightly, curiosity mixed with unease. Aaron's chest tightened. "Mom, who are they?" Rosa didn't answer, because she didn't know, and that made it worse. A knock came, firm, measured, not loud, but impossible to ignore. Have you ever stood in front of a door, knowing whatever is behind it could change everything? Rosa took a slow breath, then opened it. The man in front spoke first. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. "We're looking for Aaron." The air shifted instantly. Rosa's body stiffened. "Why?" she asked, her voice protective, sharp. The man didn't seem offended. Instead, he stepped slightly aside. And then, Aaron saw him, Victor, standing near the SUV. Alive, strong, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. No bruises, no weakness, like that night had never happened. Aaron's eyes widened. "That's him," he whispered. Rosa glanced back at him. "Who?" "The man I helped." Silence, heavy, confused. Victor stepped forward slowly, each step careful, respectful, and when he reached the door, he stopped. Not too close, not too far. "Aaron," he said. His voice was different now. Stronger, but still, warm. Aaron stepped forward slightly. "You're okay," he said. Victor nodded. "Because of you." The words landed softly, but carried weight. Rosa looked between them, trying to understand. "What is going on?" she asked. Victor turned to her. "My name is Victor Hale," he said. "And I owe your son my life." Rosa blinked, confusion deepening. "You don't owe us anything," she said quickly. "He just helped." Victor shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "he did more than that." His eyes returned to Aaron, and something in his expression shifted. Gratitude, respect, something rare. Have you ever seen someone powerful, humbled by something simple? Victor reached into his coat. Aaron tensed slightly, but instead of anything threatening, he pulled out an envelope. He held it out. "For you," he said. Aaron didn't take it immediately. He looked at his mother. Rosa hesitated, then nodded slightly. Aaron reached out slowly, took it. It felt heavier than it should. Not in weight, but in meaning. "What is it?" he asked. Victor's voice softened. "A chance." The word hung in the air. Unclear, powerful, confusing. Aaron opened the envelope carefully. Inside, papers, official, neatly arranged. His eyes scanned them slowly. Then, he froze. "What is this?" he whispered. Victor stepped closer. "This is a scholarship," he said. "For your education, fully covered." Rosa's breath caught. Aaron looked up, stunned. "All of it?" he asked. Victor nodded. "Everything." Silence filled the space again. But this time, it wasn't fear, it was disbelief. Rosa shook her head slightly. "We can't accept this," she said quickly. Victor didn't argue. He expected that. "I understand," he said calmly. "But this isn't charity." He looked at Aaron again. "This is recognition." The word hit differently. Recognition. Not pity. Not help. Something earned. Aaron's fingers tightened slightly around the papers. "But I didn't do anything special," he said. Victor's expression softened. "That's where you're wrong." He paused, then said something that stayed in the air long after. "You did the one thing most people wouldn't." The memory of that night came rushing back. The rain, the blood, the fear, the choice. Have you ever made a decision without knowing it would define your future? Because that's what this was. Rosa looked at her son.